Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a wild ride. Waking up in a Victorian home, circa 1870s England, where every corner hides a danger you'd never expect. Picture this. You're sprawled on a lumpy mattress, the air thick with the scent of coal dust and beeswax, and the darkness is so heavy it feels like it's pressing on your chest. You're not in your cozy modern bedroom with its soft LED glow and Wi-Fi router blinking in the corner. No, you're in a world where indoor plumbing is a fancy new fad and safety standards might as well be science fiction. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive 24 hours in this elegant death trap. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm curious where you're all chilling tonight, so drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your eyes snap open in a Victorian bedroom, and it's not the gentle wake-up you're used to. No phone alarm, no coffee maker gurgling in the distance, just pure, suffocating darkness. The mattress under you is stuffed with horsehair, prickly and uneven, like sleeping on a sack of bad decisions. You shift, and the bed creaks like it's auditioning for a horror movie. The air's cold, sharp enough to make your breath puff out in little clouds. You fumble for a light switch, but, good luck with that. Electricity's barely a parlor trick in the 1870s. Instead, you spot a candlestick on the bedside table, but no matches. Great start, right? The room smells odd, a mix of musty fabric, polished wood, and something faintly smoky, like a campfire that went out hours ago. You're already wondering how people survive this without losing their minds. A faint noise breaks the silence. Footsteps, quick and soft, climbing what sounds like creaky wooden stairs. A sliver of light slips under the door, and it swings open with a groan. A young woman in a plain black dress and white apron steps in, holding a candle that casts jittery shadows on the walls. "Good morning, Ma'am," she says with a quick curtsy, her voice hushed like she's afraid to wake the house. "It's 6. Shall I light your fire?" Before you can mumble a reply, she's already at the fireplace, stacking kindling and coal with practiced hands. The fire sparks to life, and the room warms slightly, but you're still shivering under your pile of heavy wool blankets. Historians note that fireplaces were the primary source of heat in Victorian homes, often burning coal that filled rooms with smoke. Fun fact, those fumes could cause respiratory issues, and nobody batted an eye. You sit up, trying to get your bearings. The maid's already bustling, setting out a pitcher of steaming water on a washstand. "Will you be wanting a bath, Ma'am?" she asks. A bath sounds heavenly, but then you remember. Victorian bathing means servants hauling buckets upstairs and standing around while you splash in a tin tub. Nope, not today. "Just water for washing," you manage, and she nods, leaving you alone. You swing your legs over the bed's edge, and the bare wooden floor bites at your feet. No plush carpet here, just a few rugs that don't do much against the chill. You shuffle to the washstand, peering into a wavy mirror that makes your face look like a funhouse reject. The soap's a hard, yellow lump that reeks of lye. Because, of course, even soap was a chemical gamble back then. Some Victorian soaps contained arsenic traces, especially if made in less regulated workshops. Historians still argue whether these trace amounts were enough to cause widespread harm. But you're not eager to test the theory. You splash water on your face, wincing at the heat, and glance around. The room's ornate, carved furniture, heavy drapes, a chandelier that's probably worth more than your car. But it feels like a trap. That gorgeous wallpaper, it might be laced with arsenic for that trendy green hue. The gas lamps on the walls. One leak, and you're napping forever. Even the air feels heavy, like it's conspiring against you. You're starting to get why Victorian novels are full of people fainting. It's not drama, it's survival mode. You spot a chamber pot under the bed. Yep, no ensuite bathroom here. You decide to hold it, hoping for a proper toilet somewhere. Spoiler: flush toilets existed by the 1870s, but they were clunky and rare, often more status symbol than reliable plumbing. The maid returns, laying out your clothes. A pile of petticoats, a corset, and a dress that looks like it weighs 20 pounds. Dressing is going to be a team sport, and you're not sure you're ready for it. You take a deep breath, already missing your sweatpants, and steel yourself for the day. The fire crackles, throwing shadows that make the room feel alive, but not in a cozy way, more like it's watching you, waiting for you to slip up. You're only an hour into this Victorian adventure, and you're already side-eyeing every object in the room. If this is what a fancy house is like, you're not sure you want to see the rest. But curiosity's got you, and there's a whole day of hidden dangers waiting to be uncovered. You step toward the door, ready to face whatever this treacherous, beautiful house throws at you next. Section 2 begins as you stand in the chilly Victorian bedroom, the fire now crackling but doing little to chase away the bone-deep cold. The maid, with her quick curtsy and candle-lit efficiency, has left you alone again, and you're staring at the washstand, still processing the fact that this is your morning routine now. No electric toothbrush, no hot shower, just a porcelain basin, a pitcher of steaming water, and that lye-heavy soap that smells like it could strip paint. You dip a cloth into the water, wincing at the heat, and start washing your face, feeling the rough texture of the fabric against your skin. The air's thick with that odd mix of coal dust, beeswax, and something musty you can't quite place. It's not exactly a spa day, is it? You're already daydreaming about your modern bathroom, with its fluffy towels and instant hot water. Good luck surviving this place without losing your mind over the basics. You glance at the clothes laid out on a chair, petticoats, a corset, and a dress that looks like it's plotting to suffocate you. Getting dressed in the 1870s isn't just a task, it's a full-blown ordeal. You pick up the corset, a contraption of whalebone and laces that screams, "bad idea." Historians point out that corsets were standard for women across classes, shaping the fashionable hourglass figure, but often at a brutal cost to health. Compressed organs, fractured ribs, and fainting spells were par for the course. You try to slip it on, but it's like wrestling a boa constrictor. After a few minutes of fumbling, you realize you're not getting this thing laced up alone. You ring the bell pull by the bed, and the maid reappears, her expression politely blank as she starts tugging the laces tight. "Not too tight," you gasp, feeling your ribs protest. She raises an eyebrow but loosens it a fraction, probably thinking you're some kind of rebel. Fun fact: some Victorian women used vinegar-soaked rags to shrink their waists for tighter lacing, because internal organ damage wasn't enough of a flex. With the corset on, You layer up with petticoats, yards of fabric that rustle like dry leaves, and then the dress, a heavy wool thing with buttons you can't reach. The maid's hands move like she's done this 1,000 times, fastening you into this wearable prison. You're now officially dressed, but you feel like you're starring in a period drama where the costume budget got out of hand. Walking feels like wading through molasses, and every step makes the floorboards creak ominously. You're starting to suspect this house is out to get you, and the clothes are just its first accomplice. Historians still argue whether tight lacing caused widespread health issues or if the dangers were exaggerated by reformers. But as your lungs beg for a full breath, your team, this is torture. You shuffle to the door, desperate to find a bathroom, or at least something better than that chamber pot glaring at you from under the bed. The hallway's dim, lit only by a sliver of morning light sneaking through a window. The walls are covered in richly patterned wallpaper, a deep burgundy that looks luxurious until you remember what might be lurking in those intricate designs. Arsenic-based dyes were all the rage for vibrant colors, and damp walls could release toxic dust into the air. You're not planning to lick the wallpaper, but just breathing in here feels like a gamble. You spot a door that might lead to a water closet and push it open, hoping for a miracle. Inside, there's a rudimentary flush toilet, a ceramic bowl with a pull chain tank above. It's a step up from the chamber pot, but the faint whiff of sewer gas makes you uneasy. Early plumbing often let methane back into homes, and explosions weren't unheard of. Nice. You use the facilities, marveling at the clunky technology. Thomas Crapper, yes, that's his real name, wouldn't perfect the siphon valve for another decade, so this toilet's probably a health hazard in disguise. You wash your hands in a small basin, using another bar of that harsh lye soap, and dry them on a towel that feels like it's been starched into submission. The mirror above the basin is wavy, distorting your reflection like you're in a funhouse. You're starting to get why Victorians always look so serious in photos. Smiling in this getup would take superhuman effort. You head back to the hallway, your skirts dragging like they're trying to anchor you to the spot. The maid's waiting, ready to guide you downstairs for breakfast, but you're already exhausted from just getting ready. The staircase looms ahead, grand but intimidating, with polished wood and a carved banister that's more decorative than practical. You grip it tightly, your heavy dress making every step a balancing act. One wrong move, and you're tumbling into a Victorian novel's tragic plot twist. The air's still cold, despite the fire in your room, and you can hear the faint clatter of dishes from somewhere below. Your stomach growls, but you're not sure you're ready for whatever passes as breakfast in this era. The maid leads you toward a morning room, and you brace yourself for the next round of hidden dangers. If getting dressed was this risky, what's waiting for you at the breakfast table? Probably something that'll make you miss your instant oatmeal even more. You follow the maid down the grand staircase, each step a cautious negotiation with your heavy skirts and that corset squeezing your ribs like an overzealous hug. The morning room awaits, but first, you're hyper-aware of the physical challenge of just moving in this getup. Dressing in the Victorian era wasn't just about looking proper. It was a daily gauntlet of laces, layers, and potential suffocation. You're already missing your stretchy leggings and the freedom to breathe deeply. The hallway's dim glow and the faint creak of the floorboards underfoot make you feel like you're in a museum exhibit. one that might kill you if you're not careful. The maid's quick steps ahead of you are a reminder that she's used to this world, while you're still fumbling through it like a time traveler who forgot the manual. You pause at the bottom of the stairs, catching your breath. The corset's not just a fashion statement, it's a health hazard. Historians note that tight lacing, popular among middle and upper class women, could displace organs, restrict lung capacity, and even cause fainting spells, hence the infamous swooning Victorian ladies were known for. You're starting to think those faints weren't just for dramatic effect, they were probably gasping for air. The dress you're wearing, a deep navy affair with a fitted bodice and a skirt that feels like it's made of lead, isn't helping. The petticoats underneath rustle with every move, and you're pretty sure you're dragging half the house's dust along with you. Quirky tidbit: some Victorian women used arsenic-based complexion powders to achieve that pale, delicate look, because nothing says beauty like a side of poison. You glance at the walls, their burgundy wallpaper catching the morning light filtering through heavy curtains. It's gorgeous, but you're not fooled. That vibrant hue might be hiding arsenic, a common ingredient in dyes that gave Victorian homes their signature style. Historians still argue whether the arsenic in wallpaper caused widespread illness or if its effects were overstated by panicked reformers. But you're not taking chances. You keep your hands to yourself, resisting the urge to touch the intricate patterns. The maid leads you into the morning room, where a small table is set for breakfast. The sight is almost comical: silver dishes, a towering coffee pot, and enough food to feed a small army. Eggs, bacon, kippers, toast, muffins, and jam are laid out like a buffet for one. You're starving, but you're also suspicious. What's in this food? You sit, and the maid pours you a cup of coffee so dark it looks like motor oil. You take a cautious sip and nearly gag. It's bitter, strong enough to wake the dead, and probably stretched with something dubious like chicory or burnt sugar. Food adulteration was rampant in the Victorian era. Bread might contain chalk to make it whiter. Milk could be laced with borax to mask spoilage, and coffee was often cut with anything cheap and brown. You eye the eggs, wondering if they're safe, and skip the kippers entirely. Fish in the 1870s weren't exactly subject to FDA inspections. You nibble on toast, which seems the least likely to betray you, and try to ignore the maid hovering nearby, her hands red and chapped from lye soap. Domestic work was brutal. Servants faced chemical burns, respiratory issues from coal dust, and endless physical strain. You're starting to feel like you're in a house where everything, from the food to the furniture, is plotting against you. Getting back to your outfit, you shift in your chair, the corset digging into your sides. It's not just uncomfortable, it's a health risk wrapped in silk. The whalebone stays poke at you, and the laces feel like they're staging a coup against your spine. You're tempted to loosen them, but the maid's watchful eye makes you think twice. Victorian fashion wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a social contract. A proper lady wore her corset, layers, and modesty like armor, signaling status and virtue. But the price was steep: fainting, organ damage, and even infections from tight-laced corsets that chafed skin raw. You're starting to get why Victorian women always looked so poised yet miserable in portraits. It's hard to smile when your ribcage is staging a protest. You push your plate away, too wary to eat much, and decide to explore more of the house. The maid clears the table with a quiet efficiency that makes you feel like a guest in your own temporary life. You stand, your skirts swishing like a disapproving librarian, and head for the door. The hallway stretches before you, its polished wood floor gleaming under the gas lamps that aren't lit yet. Thankfully, because those things are ticking time bombs. You're not sure where to go next, but the idea of staying still in this death trap of a house feels worse than moving. Maybe there's a library or a drawing room where you can sit and pretend you're not surrounded by invisible poisons. You take a step, then pause, realizing your dress is caught on a chair leg. You tug it free, muttering under your breath. Joke number 1. If this dress gets any heavier, you'll need a horse and cart just to get to the next room. The hallway's grandeur is undeniable. High ceilings, ornate moldings, a chandelier that probably costs more than a year's rent in your modern life. But every detail hides a threat. The rug underfoot might be dyed with toxic chemicals. The wood polish could be releasing fumes. And don't even get started on the dust. Victorian homes were dust magnets, and without modern vacuums, servants spent hours beating rugs and sweeping floors, kicking up particles that irritated lungs. You're starting to feel like you're in a game of spot the hazard, and you're losing. You pass a window, its heavy drapes blocking most of the light, and peek outside. The streets alive with horse-drawn carriages and vendors shouting about their wares. It's tempting to go out, but you're not sure you're ready to trade indoor dangers for outdoor ones just yet. You turn toward what looks like a drawing room, hoping for a moment of peace, but the corsets making every step a reminder of your new reality. You're not just dressed, you're encased. The layers, the weight, the constant pressure. It's like the house and the clothes are in cahoots to wear you down. You're starting to understand why Victorian women were always taking to their beds with vague ailments. It wasn't laziness, it was survival. You push open the drawing room door, bracing yourself for whatever fresh peril awaits. The day's barely started, and you're already wondering how anyone made it through a week in this era, let alone a lifetime. You step into the drawing room, the heavy door creaking like it's gossiping about your arrival. The space is a feast for the eyes, plush armchairs, a marble fireplace, and walls covered in wallpaper so intricate it looks like it was painted by hand. But that wallpaper, with its vibrant emerald swirls, stops you cold. It's stunning, sure, but you're not fooled by its beauty. You're staring at a potential poison factory. In the 1870s, arsenic was the secret sauce behind those trendy green hues, used in everything from wallpaper to dresses. You take a shallow breath. Thanks, corset. And keep your distance, as if the walls might exhale toxic dust if you get too close. You're not paranoid. You're just not keen on arsenic poisoning before lunch. The room smells of beeswax and old books, with a faint metallic tang you can't place. It's cozy in a don't touch anything kind of way. You sink into an armchair, the upholstery soft, but probably hiding its dangers, maybe dyed with more of that arsenic-laced green. Historians estimate that by the mid-19th century, arsenic was so common in home decor that entire households could suffer from chronic exposure, with symptoms like headaches, nausea, or worse, misdiagnosed as nervous disorders. You're starting to think those fainting Victorian ladies weren't just being dramatic. They were probably breathing in their wallpaper's bad vibes. Quirky tidbit. Some Victorians swore by arsenic pills for a glowing complexion, willingly eating poison for beauty. Historians still argue whether the wallpaper-related illnesses were widespread or if the panic was overblown by early health reformers. But you're not taking chances. You're keeping your hands off the walls and not licking anything. The fireplace crackles, casting a warm glow that makes the room feel deceptively safe. You notice a small table nearby, cluttered with knickknacks, porcelain figurines, a silver cigarette case, a framed photo of a stern-looking family. Every surface in this house seems to be drowning in stuff, like the Victorians were allergic to space. You pick up the photo, careful not to smudge the glass, and study the faces. There's you, or your Victorian doppelganger, looking like you've never smiled a day in your life, flanked by a bearded man and a young girl. Probably your husband and daughter, you guess, though the whole time traveler thing makes family dynamics a bit fuzzy. The frame's heavy, probably silver, and you wonder if it's tarnished with lead-based polish. Joke number 1. If you survive this house, you're framing this photo as proof you outsmarted the 19th century. You set the photo down and glance at the windows, draped in thick velvet curtains. They block most of the daylight, making the room feel like a cave with better furniture. You pull one aside, letting in a sliver of winter sun, and immediately regret it. The air outside is thick with coal smoke from chimneys across the street, and you can hear the clatter of horse hooves on cobblestones. The view's charming. Carriages, ladies in bonnets, a kid selling newspapers. But you know that air's a cocktail of soot and who knows what. You let the curtain fall, trapping yourself back in the room's stuffy embrace. The gas lamps on the walls aren't lit, but their presence looms like a threat. One leaky pipe, and you're starring in a Victorian tragedy. You're starting to feel like this house is a puzzle, where every piece is trying to kill you. You wander to a bookshelf, hoping for a distraction. The leather-bound volumes look impressive. History, poetry, a few novels. But you're wary. Some Victorian books used arsenic in their green covers, and the paper itself could be laced with toxic chemicals from shoddy production. You pull out a book on botany, its pages yellowed but intact, and flip through it. The illustrations are gorgeous, all hand-drawn flowers and plants. But you notice a section on pesticides. Guess what? Paris green. Yep, more arsenic. Was a go-to for keeping bugs off roses. You snap the book shut, a little too hard, and a puff of dust makes you cough. Great. Now you're inhaling 150-year-old particles. Joke number 2. If you wanted a dusty death, you'd have just stayed home and cleaned your attic. The maid appears at the door, startling you. "Will you be receiving visitors, ma'am?" she asks, holding a silver tray with a single calling card. You shake your head, not ready to navigate Victorian social etiquette when you're still dodging invisible poisons. "Not today, thank you," you say, and she curtsies, disappearing as silently as she came. You're alone again, but the wallpaper's green glow feels like it's watching you. You move to the center of the room, as far from the walls as possible, and sit on a sofa that creaks under your weight. The corset's still pinching, the air's still heavy, and you're starting to wonder if the real danger isn't the arsenic, but the sheer effort of existing in this era. Every breath feels like a gamble, every object a potential traitor. You glance at the clock on the mantelpiece, barely past 10, and you're already exhausted. The day's only just begun, but you're learning fast that Victorian life is a minefield of beauty and danger. The drawing room's elegance is undeniable, with its polished wood and intricate decor, but it's like a siren song luring you into a trap. You lean back, trying to relax, but the thought of arsenic dust settling on your skin keeps you upright. You're not sure what's next. Maybe breakfast leftovers or a risky stroll outside. But you know one thing. This house isn't done testing you. The wallpaper's still there, silently gleaming, and you can almost hear it whispering, "Just try to make it to dinner." You stand, brushing imaginary dust off your skirts, and head for the door, ready to face the next round of this deadly Victorian game. You leave the drawing room behind, the wallpaper's green menace still fresh in your mind, and head toward the dining area, drawn by the lingering aroma of breakfast you barely touched earlier. Your skirts swish against the polished floor, a constant reminder of how every movement in this house feels weighted down, literally and figuratively. The corset's grip hasn't loosened, and you're starting to think of it as your personal torment device, custom-made for the era. But hunger gnaws at you now, overriding the paranoia about adulterated food. You push open the door to the morning room again, where the table's been refreshed with what looks like a light lunch: cold meats, bread, cheese, fruit, and a pitcher of something that might be ale or water. The maid's there, setting out plates with her chapped hands, and she gives a quick curtsy. "Luncheon is served, ma'am," she says, pouring you a glass of the mystery liquid. You sit, eyeing it suspiciously. Is it safe? Victorian water supplies were often contaminated, pulled from rivers thick with sewage, and even in wealthy homes, lead pipes could leach poison into every sip. You take a tentative drink. It's water, thankfully cool and tasteless. But you can't shake the knowledge that cholera outbreaks were common until the 1860s reforms. Historians credit John Snow's mapping of a London pump for proving waterborne disease. But even in the 1870s, not every home had clean sources. You skip the ale. Alcohol might kill germs, but Victorian brews were sometimes cut with toxic additives like strychnine for that extra kick. Quirky tidbit: some beers included opium or cocaine, marketed as health tonics for everything from teething babies to weary workers. Historians still argue whether these adulterations were deliberate profiteering or just ignorant experimentation. But you're not rolling the dice. You reach for the bread instead, its crust crisp and white, too white. Alum was often added to whiten flour, making cheap bread look premium, but causing digestive woes and malnutrition. You tear off a piece, chewing slowly, tasting the faint chemical tang that might be your imagination, or might be the era's sneaky sabotage. The cheese looks innocent enough, a sharp cheddar that crumbles under your knife. But you recall milk scandals where borax masked spoilage, killing thousands of kids annually. You take a small bite, savoring the flavor while half expecting your stomach to rebel. The cold meats, ham, beef, are sliced thin, glistening with fat. But sausages were notorious for fillers like sawdust, or worse, rotten offal. You avoid them, opting for fruit instead, an apple peeled and quartered on the plate. At least nature's produce seems safe, though pesticides like that arsenic-based Paris green could linger on skin. Joke number 1. If Victorian food were a party, it'd be the kind where half the guests are undercover assassins. You eat cautiously, The maid refilling your water without a word, her presence a silent commentary on the class divide. Servants ate scraps, often the dodgiest bits, facing malnutrition on top of their hazards. As you chew, your gaze wanders to the window, where the garden is visible through lace curtains. A gardener's out there, tending beds with what looks like a spray bottle, probably more arsenic for pests. The fruit on your plate might have come from there, dusted with the stuff. You set the apple down, appetite waning. The room's quiet except for the tick of a clock and distant kitchen clatter, but your mind's buzzing with dangers. Even the silverware feels suspect, polished with compounds that could include lead or mercury. You wipe your mouth with a napkin, starched and stiff, and push back from the table. Lunch over. But survival's just begun. You stand, skirts rustling like they're applauding your caution, and decide to explore further. Maybe the kitchen holds answers, or more threats. You slip through a side door, following the sounds of activity, and find yourself in a service hallway, plainer than the main areas, with whitewashed walls and no frills. The kitchen's ahead, a hive of steam and sizzle. The cook, a stout woman in an apron, is stirring a pot over a massive cast-iron range, while a scullery maid scrubs dishes in a stone sink. The air's thick with heat, flour dust, and the scent of baking bread. Comforting, but you know better. Open flames meant burns were common, and coal fumes choked lungs daily. You hover in the doorway, not wanting to intrude on this domain of drudgery. The cook glances up, wiping sweat from her brow. "Ma'am, can I help?" she asks, surprised. You mumble something about checking on dinner, but really, you're scanning for perils. Shelves hold jars of preserves, sealed with wax that might hide botulism, and sacks of flour potentially riddled with weevils or ergot fungus, which caused hallucinations and gangrene in bad batches. You spot a mouse darting behind a crate. Rodents were kitchen staples, spreading typhus through droppings in food stores. The cat lounging on a windowsill is the only defense, but even it could carry fleas with plague vibes. Joke number 2. Victorian kitchens, where your meal prep includes a side of survival roulette. You back out, nodding thanks, and retreat to the main house, heart pounding from the close call with real grit. The food you just ate feels heavier in your stomach now, a reminder that every bite was a risk. But you're still standing, so maybe you're tougher than you thought. The afternoon stretches ahead, full of more rooms to uncover, each with its brand of hidden doom. You head upstairs, careful on the steps, wondering what fresh hell awaits in the nursery or library. This house isn't letting up, and neither are you. You make your way toward the staircase, the echo of your footsteps muffled by the thick runner carpet that's probably seen better days. The house feels alive around you, with distant creaks and the faint hum of activity from the servants' quarters below. Your lunch sits uneasily in your stomach, a reminder of the adulterated risks you just dodged. But you're pushing on, curiosity overriding caution. The stairs rise before you like a challenge, steep and narrow, the polished wood banister gleaming under the dim gaslight from wall sconces. You grip it firmly, your gloved hands sliding along the smooth surface, and take the first step. It's higher than you're used to, forcing you to lift your skirts to avoid tripping. The layers of petticoats bunch up awkwardly, and you wobble slightly, heart skipping a beat. One wrong move here, and you're tumbling down in a heap of fabric and regret. These stairs aren't just a way up. They're a Victorian obstacle course designed for an era when safety railings were more suggestion than standard. You climb slowly, each step a deliberate effort, the wood groaning under your weight, like it's complaining about the intrusion. The air grows cooler as you ascend, drafts sneaking through cracks in the walls that no amount of wallpaper can seal. Historians record that household accidents, especially falls on stairs, were a leading cause of injury and death in Victorian homes, with uneven treads and poor lighting turning everyday navigation into a hazard. You pause halfway up, catching your breath. The corset's not helping, squeezing your lungs like it's personally offended by deep inhales. The staircase twists slightly, a grand architectural flourish that's pretty but impractical, narrowing at the turn where servants might rush with trays or coal scuttles. You imagine the back stairs, even steeper and hidden away for the help, where corners were cut on construction to save costs. Quirky tidbit: some Victorian homes had fainting rooms at the top of stairs for ladies overcome by the climb, or more likely, by their tight-laced corsets and the era's anemia-inducing diets. You resume your ascent, skirts hiked up just enough to see your feet, the fabric whispering against the steps like it's plotting your downfall. The banisters, your lifeline, carved with intricate patterns that feel slippery under your palm. No non-slip grips here. No building codes mandating even rises or handrail heights. You're starting to get why Victorian novels are full of dramatic tumbles. It's not plot convenience, it's realism. Historians still argue whether these architectural dangers stemmed from aesthetic priorities over safety, or from the rapid urbanization that outpaced regulations. But as you teeter on a particularly worn tread, you're voting for both, and it's terrifying. You reach the landing, exhaling in relief, but the upper hallway stretches out dimly, shadows pooling in corners where gas lamps haven't been lit yet. The floorboards up here creak louder, like the house is settling its bones, and you wonder if rot or poor joists lurk beneath. You glance back down the stairs, the drop steeper from this angle, and shudder at the thought of navigating them in the dark with only a candle. Nighttime would turn this into a death trap, flames flickering just enough to cast misleading shadows. You move on, toward what looks like the nursery door, your steps cautious on the uneven floor. The house's grandeur hides shoddy workmanship in places guests wouldn't see: servant passages, attics, and yes, these back-of-house stairs. You push open the nursery door, stepping into a brighter room, with toys scattered and a rocking horse in the corner. But even here, the dangers echo from below. A small set of steps leads to a play area, miniature, but just as treacherous for little feet. You pick up a painted block, its colors vivid. Lead-based paint, no doubt, sweet-tasting and neurotoxic for chewing toddlers. Joke number 1. If Victorian kids survived their toys and stairs, they were superheroes in pinafores. You set the block down, scanning the room's cheerful chaos. Alphabet posters on the walls, a dollhouse with tiny furniture, all charming until you factor in the flammability. Open fires for warmth, gas lamps for light, and no smoke alarms. A fall from that window seat could be disastrous, the drop to the garden below unforgiving. You sit on the edge of the child's bed, the mattress thin and firm, designed for discipline rather than comfort. The air smells of lavender soap and talcum, masking the ever-present coal dust that filters up from downstairs. Your mind drifts back to the stairs. How many servants slipped hauling water or laundry, their loads unbalancing them on those slick treads. Domestic injuries were underreported, but diaries reveal broken bones and sprains as commonplace. You stand, crossing to the window for a view of the street, where carriages rumble by, their wheels kicking up mud that tracks into homes and breeds bacteria. The nursery's relative safety feels illusory. Even the crib rails might be coated in that toxic paint, inviting gnawing teeth. You turn away, heading back to the hallway, but the main stairs call you down again. Maybe to the library this time. Descending is trickier, gravity pulling at your heavy dress like it's eager to speed things up. You grip the banister tighter, steps deliberate, the creak of wood a warning soundtrack. Halfway down, a loose board shifts underfoot, and you stumble, catching yourself just in time. Heart racing, you freeze, imagining the headlines in a Victorian paper. Lady takes tumble in treacherous townhouse. Joke number 2. Stairs like these must have been the original cardio workout. Survive them, and you're fit for anything, or at least a good feint. You reach the bottom safely, legs shaky, and pause in the entrance hall. The grand staircase's sweep is impressive, meant to wow visitors, but it's a facade over peril. You spot a side door leading to what might be the basement stairs, darker, steeper, for coal deliveries and storage. No way you're venturing there. Damp cellars bred mold and rats, with steps slick from moisture. Instead, you head to the library, its door ajar, shelves visible through the crack. Books line the walls, leather spines promising escape. But even they aren't safe. Dust mites, toxic inks, arsenic in green bindings. You enter the room smelling of paper and polish and sink into a chair by the window. The stairs threat lingers, a full-body reminder that this house doesn't forgive clumsiness. You've made it this far, but the day's wearing on, and every up and down feels like tempting fate. Joke number 3. If you wanted an adventure with heights, you'd have picked rock climbing, not Victorian housekeeping. You flip open a book, eyes blurring from the fine print in low light, but your thoughts circle back to those stairs. They're not just architecture. They're a symbol of the era's indifference to safety, where beauty trumped practicality. You close the book, standing to explore more, but the hallway's stairs loom in your mind like a gatekeeper. The house's secrets are upstairs and down, each level connected by these treacherous threads. You're resilient, adapting step by step, but you know one misstep could end this bizarre journey. For now, you linger in the library, gathering strength for the next climb, the afternoon light fading as hidden dangers wait patiently in the shadows. You ease out of the library chair, the fading afternoon light casting long shadows across the room, and notice how the gas lamps on the walls are starting to flicker to life as a maid moves silently through the house, turning keys and striking matches. The soft hiss of gas escaping before ignition sends a chill down your spine, even as the warm, yellowish glow spreads, chasing away the gloom. It's mesmerizing, this innovation that lit up Victorian nights like magic. But you're not buying the charm. You've read enough to know these lamps are bombs in brass fittings, ready to turn a cozy evening into a headline-grabbing disaster. The air takes on a faint, acrid scent, like burnt metal mixed with the ever-present coal dust, and you find yourself breathing shallower, as if that could ward off the invisible threats. The house feels smaller now, the walls closing in under this artificial light that's both savior and saboteur. You're starting to wonder if the real horror of Victorian life wasn't the monsters under the bed, but the ones hanging from the ceiling. You watch the maid work, her match flaring bright before she touches it to the mantel, the flame dancing behind etched glass shades that diffuse the light into something almost romantic. But romance is the last thing on your mind. Gas lighting revolutionized homes in the 19th century, replacing dim candles with brighter, steadier illumination that let people read, sew, or socialize long after sunset. Historians credit it with boosting productivity and leisure, but at what cost? Leaks were commonplace, filling rooms with carbon monoxide that could cause headaches, dizziness, or a permanent nap. You edge away from the nearest lamp, its glow reflecting off the polished wood paneling, and imagine the headlines. Family asphyxiated in sleep, gas to blame again. The maid gives you a curious glance, but says nothing, curtsying before slipping out to light the next room. You're left alone with the hissing fixtures, their subtle hum a constant reminder that convenience came with a deadly edge. You wander closer to one lamp, peering at the intricate brasswork, but keep your distance. No need to tempt fate with a closer sniff. The gas, often coal-derived, carried impurities that could corrode pipes over time, leading to those sneaky leaks. And explosions? Oh, they happened, especially if a flame met a build-up in a faulty line. Quirky tidbit. Some Victorians used gas finders, little birds in cages that would drop dead from fumes before humans noticed, like canaries in coal mines. But for your parlour, historians still argue whether gaslighting's dangers were exaggerated by sensational newspapers, or if the body count was truly underreported, given how many mysterious illnesses might have been monoxide poisoning in disguise. You back away, the light flickering slightly as a draft stirs the flame, and feel a headache brewing. Or is that just paranoia? The corset's not helping, but neither is the thought of odorous gas seeping through the walls while you sleep. The drawing room's lamps are next on your mental checklist, but you detour to the hallway first, where a central chandelier hangs like a crown of potential doom. Its multiple burners cast an eerie, wavering light on the wallpaper, making the patterns seem to shift and breathe. You recall that green hue from earlier, arsenic again, heated by the gas flames, releasing vapors that could turn a tea party into a toxic affair. Joke number one. If the wallpaper doesn't get you, the lights will. Victorians knew how to throw a killer soiree. You hurry past, skirts brushing the baseboards, and push into the dining room, where the table's set for dinner under a grand gaselier, its arms branching out like a mechanical octopus. The maid's already there, adjusting the flames to a steady burn, the room warming with light that highlights the silver and china. It looks inviting, but you're seeing traps everywhere. A loose fitting here, a faint hiss there, one spark from a dropped match, and boom, your evening meal becomes fireworks. You sit at the table, though dinner's not yet served, just to test the waters or the air. The light's brighter here, illuminating every detail of the ornate ceiling rose where the gas pipe enters. Faulty installations were rampant, with plumbers, if you could call them that, often skimping on seals. You lean back, watching the flames dance, and think about how this tech spread like wildfire, pun intended, across cities. But so did the accidents. Entire buildings went up in flames from gas explosions, and homes weren't immune. The smell intensifies slightly, or maybe it's your imagination running wild with tales of families found lifeless in their beds, windows sealed against the cold. You stand abruptly, needing movement to shake off the dread, and head to the window. Outside, street lamps are igniting too, their glow turning the cobblestones into a hazy mosaic. But even those public lights leaked, contributing to urban fogs thick with poison. You turn back, the room's ambience shifting to something almost hypnotic under the gaslight, the shadows softening edges and hiding flaws. It's ASMR-level soothing if you ignore the risks, the gentle flicker, the low hum. But you're not ignoring anything. Joke number 2. Gas lamps. Because who needs enemies when your lighting can double as an assassin? You explore the sideboard, fingering a crystal decanter that catches the light beautifully, but your mind's on the pipes snaking through the walls, invisible highways of hazard. Upgrading to gas was a status symbol, yet it brought equality in danger. Rich and poor alike, choked on the same fumes. The maid returns with a tray of pre-dinner sherry, the glasses twinkling under the lamps, and you accept one cautiously. Is the alcohol safe? Probably laced with additives. But at this point, a sip might steady your nerves. You sip slowly, the warmth spreading, but the gaslight's flicker draws your eye again, mesmerizing yet menacing. The house relies on this for evening life, reading, dining, conversing, but each hour burns with risk. You set the glass down, wandering to the doorway, where the hallway's lamps create a corridor of light and shadow. Descending those stairs at night, under this unsteady glow, a recipe for disaster, misjudged steps leading to tumbles. You recall the earlier climb, how treacherous it felt in daylight. Now, with gas casting illusions, it's a nightmare waiting. The clock chimes softly, marking time in this flickering world, and you feel the day's weight settling. Dinner approaches, but so does dusk. When the lamp's dangers peak, you're adapting, eyes sharp for leaks, nose alert for odd scents, but the house's glow feels like a false friend. Joke number 3. Surviving Victorian lighting is like dating a bad boy, thrilling until it blows up in your face. You linger, the gaslight's warmth on your skin a deceptive comfort, as servants bustle in with covered dishes. The meal smells divine, but you're scanning for vents or drafts that might carry fumes. This era's innovations shine bright, but their shadows hide killers. You've navigated stairs and poison so far. Now, under this artificial sun, you brace for the evening's subtle siege. The flames steady, the room aglow, but tension hums like the gas itself. Night's falling, and the house's secrets illuminate one by one. You finish your sherry, the gaslight's flicker playing across the dining room like it's setting the stage for the evening's drama, and decide you need fresh air, or whatever passes for it in this smog-choked city. The house's confined glow is starting to feel oppressive, with its hissing lamps and hidden leaks whispering threats in every corner. You ring for the maid, who appears promptly with your walking costume. A tailored jacket, bustle-enhanced skirt, hat, gloves, and parasol. Changing again, because why not make every outing a wardrobe event? Feels exhausting, but Victorian propriety demands it. No jeans and sneakers here. Everything's layered for modesty and status. Even if it means waddling like a well-dressed penguin, the maid helps you into the outfit, tightening the corset just enough to remind you who's boss. And you adjust the hat's feathers, which are probably dyed with mercury for that vibrant sheen. Beauty's a beast in this era, literally poisonous. You step out to the front door, parasol in hand, to shield your pale skin from the sun. Tans were for laborers, not ladies, and the street assaults your senses. The air's thick with coal smoke from chimneys belching black plumes, mixing with the earthy stench of horse manure piled in gutters. Carriages clatter by, wheels splashing through puddles that look more like sewage soup, and vendors hawk flowers, pies, and newspapers from carts. You start walking, skirts brushing the cobblestones, picking up who knows what filth along the hem. Historians describe Victorian streets as open sewers, with urban waste-breeding cholera and typhus until Bazalgette's sewers in the 1860s started cleaning things up. But even in the 1870s, progress was patchy, and the Great Stink of 1858 was still fresh in memory. You dodge a pile of manure, its flies buzzing like tiny drones, and think about how this mess fertilizes gardens, but also contaminates water and food chains. The parasol twirls in your grip, a fashion accessory doubling as UV protection, but you spot other ladies nodding politely as they pass, their dresses in shades of green that scream arsenic. Those dyes, leached by sweat or rain, could irritate skin or worse, absorb into bloodstreams for chronic poisoning. You keep your pace steady, the corset restricting your stride to something demure and ladylike, while gentlemen tip hats and street urchins dart around, ragged and barefoot. The air burns your throat slightly. That coal smog is a constant haze, reducing visibility to a murky veil. Quirky tidbit: Victorians used pea soupers, those infamous fogs of smoke and mist, as excuses for everything from delayed trains to mysterious crimes. But they killed thousands via respiratory failure, like the 1952 Great Smog that echoed these earlier horrors. Historians still argue whether industrial pollution's health toll was downplayed by factory owners or if public awareness lagged behind the science. But as you cough discreetly into your glove, you're convinced it was a silent epidemic. You turn a corner, entering a busier thoroughfare where shops line the street, their windows displaying fabrics, hats, and confections. A bakery's aroma tempts you, fresh bread, perhaps laced with alum like your breakfast. But you press on, parasol blocking the weak sun. The ground's uneven, cobblestones slick from recent rain, and your boots slip once, nearly sending you sprawling. Street crossings are chaos. No signals, just dodging horses and carts, manure squelching underfoot. You spot a crossing sweeper, a boy with a broom clearing paths for pennies, his face smudged with grime. Poor kids like him faced rickets from malnutrition and pollution-stunted growth, while the wealthy strolled on, oblivious. Joke number 1. If you thought modern traffic was bad, try Victorian streets, where the roadkill might include your dignity. The walk invigorates, despite the hazards. the bustle a vibrant contrast to the house's stuffy elegance. You pass a park, its iron gates open to promenaders, and inhale deeper, fresher here, but still tinged with distant factory smoke. Benches hold couples chatting, children rolling hoops that might be painted with lead. Your mind wanders to the dyes in your dress. A sudden drizzle starts, pattering on your parasol, and you worry about arsenic runoff, staining your skin green and toxic. The rain mixes with street muck, creating rivulets that carry waste toward drains. But overflows were common, flooding basements with filth. You quicken your step, skirts hiking slightly to avoid puddles, the corset chafing now from movement. A vendor calls out, selling hot chestnuts from a brazier, their smoky scent mingling with the general haze. Tempting, but charcoal fumes add to the air's poison, and who knows if the nuts are contaminated. You decline with a smile, continuing past a lamppost where a worker adjusts the gas mantle. Another reminder of the flickering menaces waiting at home. The streets pulse with life. A flower girl with wilted blooms, probably sprayed with arsenic preservative. A newsboy shouting headlines about parliamentary debates and foreign tensions. It's exhilarating, this slice of history, but the undercurrent of danger sours it. Manure breeding bacteria, smoke scarring lungs, dyes seeping poisons. Joke number 2. Taking a Victorian walk is like speed dating disasters. Each block introduces a new way to meet your maker. You loop back toward the house, muscles aching from the constrained gait, the parasol heavy now. The front steps appear, boot scraper waiting to clean off the street's grime. A small mercy in an era of tracked-in toxins. You pause, catching your breath, the air still heavy, but the walk's cleared your head somewhat. The toxic streets have shown you the house isn't the only killer. The whole city conspires. You ascend the steps carefully, hand on the railing, and push open the door, escaping the outdoor perils for the familiar indoor ones. The hall's gas lamps are lit early against the gloom, welcoming you back to the next act. Afternoon tea awaits perhaps, but so do more discoveries in this beautiful, treacherous world. You've survived the stroll, skirts muddied, but spirit intact, ready for whatever lurks inside next. You return from your walk, the street's toxic haze still clinging to your skirts like an unwelcome souvenir, and shake off the chill in the entrance hall. The gas lamps are burning low now, their flicker a subtle taunt as evening creeps in, but you're not ready to face dinner yet. Instead, you wander toward a small room off the hallway that you glimpsed earlier, a sort of study or office, with a desk piled high with ledgers and a cabinet in the corner that draws your eye. It's locked, but the key's in the drawer, almost inviting you to snoop. You turn it with a click, the door swinging open to reveal shelves lined with bottles, tins and boxes. The Victorian medicine cabinet, a veritable apothecary of cures that could just as easily kill. The air inside smells sharp, medicinal, camphor, laudanum, and something metallic that makes your nose wrinkle. You're staring at a pharmacy where remedy often meant roulette, and you're not sure you want to play. You pick up the first bottle cautiously, its label faded but legible. Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup for Teething Children. It looks innocent, a clear liquid promising relief, but you recall the horror stories. This stuff was laced with morphine, dosed to babies to quiet cries, often sending them into comas or worse. Thousands of infants died from overdoses. Their parents were unwitting in an era before drug regulations. You set it down gently, as if it might bite, and scan the shelves. Next is a tin of arsenic complexion wafers, marketed for clear skin, but essentially poison pills that caused hair loss, nerve damage, or death with prolonged use. Historians estimate that arsenic was in everything from medicines to cosmetics, with doctors prescribing it for malaria or syphilis, unaware of its cumulative toxicity. You shudder, imagining the glow it gave was the pallor of impending doom. The cabinet's depths hold more horrors. A bottle of chloral hydrate, an early sedative nicknamed knockout drops for its potency, often mixed with alcohol for insomnia, but addictive and lethal in excess. Victorian novels are rife with it, used for sleep, but also for nefarious plots like drugging victims. You unscrew the cap briefly, the chemical whiff hitting you like a warning, and recap it fast. Beside it sits laudanum, a tincture of opium in alcohol, the go-to for pain, coughs, or female complaints. Women, especially, were hooked, their dependencies dismissed as hysteria, leading to wasted lives and overdoses. Quirky tidbit: famous figures like Mary Todd Lincoln and Elizabeth Barrett Browning were addicts, their creativity fueled and felled by this legal narcotic. Historians still argue whether laudanum's widespread use was a symptom of poor medical knowledge or a deliberate oversight by profit-driven patent medicine makers. But as you hold the bottle, its dark liquid sloshing, you're betting on greed. You dig deeper, finding Godfrey's cordial, another opium brew for colicky babies, and Dover's powder, a mix of opium and ipecac for sweats and fevers. These weren't back-alley brews. They were sold openly, advertised in newspapers as miracles. But the side effects, constipation, respiratory failure, addiction, claimed countless lives, especially among the poor who couldn't afford doctors. You spot a jar of calomel, mercury chloride used as a purgative, which rotted teeth, caused salivation, and led to mercury poisoning with symptoms like tremors and madness. Lewis Carroll's Mad Hatter wasn't fiction. Hatters used mercury in felting, but so did medicine, turning patients into quivering wrecks. Joke number 1. Victorian doctors must have thought first, not harm, was optional, more like first dose with doom. The lower shelf holds tonics, coca wine, infused with cocaine for energy, popular among the elite. Even Pope Leo XIII endorsed a version. And Vin Mariani, the same drug in wine form. Cocaine was hailed as a wonder for fatigue or depression, but withdrawals brought paranoia and heart issues. You imagine sipping this after a long day, only to spiral into addiction. Nearby is a box of female pills promising to cure irregularities, but packed with abortifacients like tansy or pennyroyal, toxic herbs that caused hemorrhaging or liver failure. Victorian women, desperate in an age of limited birth control, risked their lives with these, often dying from complications mislabeled as miscarriages. The cabinets, a snapshot of desperation and ignorance, where science lagged behind salesmanship. You close the door with a soft thud, locking it as if to contain the evils inside. But the knowledge lingers like a bad aftertaste. This isn't just a cabinet. It's a tomb of good intentions gone wrong, where poisons posed as panaceas. You lean against the desk, glancing at the ledgers, household accounts, noting purchases of these very items, pennies spent on peril. The room's quiet, the gas lamp on the wall hissing faintly, its light casting shadows that make the cabinet seem to loom larger. You're starting to see the pattern. The house's beauty masks death at every turn, from wallpaper to remedies. Joke number 2. If modern medicine has side effects, Victorian cures had main effects, like terminating your subscription to life. You step out, the hallway's dim glow welcoming you back to the main house, but your mind's reeling from the discovery. Dinner's probably ready soon, with its food risks, but now you're wondering about the after-meal digestive aid that might be offered, likely more opium or bicarbonate laced with impurities. The nursery upstairs crosses your thoughts. What if the child needs soothing? You head toward the stairs, each step heavy with newfound wariness, the cabinet's contents a mental weight. The era's faith in these bottles was blind, progress without precaution, and you're grateful for your modern knowledge, even if it makes every moment here a tightrope walk. Evening deepens, the house settling into night, but the medicine cabinet's secrets echo, a reminder that healing often hides harm. You've uncovered another layer of this deadly domicile, and as you climb, you brace for what the night might do next. You slip away from the study, the medicine cabinet's array of poisons still haunting your thoughts like a bad aftertaste from lunch, and decide to venture into the less polished parts of the house, the servants' domain. The main hallway leads to a discreet door covered in green baize, designed to muffle sounds and separate the family's elegant world from the gritty engine room below. You push it open gently, the fabric soft under your fingers, and step into a narrower corridor that's starkly different. Plain walls, scuffed floors, and a chill that seeps through despite the distant hum of activity. The air smells of lye soap, coal dust, and boiling cabbage, earthy, unvarnished, a far cry from the beeswax-polished parlors upstairs. You're intruding here, a lady of the house poking into the hidden machinery that keeps everything running, but curiosity pulls you deeper. The servants' quarters are the unsung backbone of Victorian life, and you're about to see why downstairs was synonymous with drudgery and danger. You follow the corridor toward the kitchen sounds, passing a small room that must be the butler's pantry, shelves of silver waiting to be polished, the air tangy with metal cleaner that probably contains lead or ammonia fumes. Servants spent hours here, breathing in chemicals that irritated lungs and eyes, their hands raw from endless buffing. You peek in, spotting a young footman hunched over a tray, his posture bent from years of heavy lifting. Back strains were epidemic among male servants, hauling coal, water, and furniture up those treacherous stairs you navigated earlier. You move on, the floor sloping slightly downward to the basement level, where the real work happens. The stairs here are steeper, narrower, with no grand banister, just rough wood that splinters if you're not careful. You descend cautiously, skirts gathered to avoid snags, each step echoing in the dim space lit by a single flickering oil lamp. No gaslight down here, too expensive for the help. The kitchen opens up at the bottom, a cavernous room dominated by a massive cast iron range that's roaring with fire, heat radiating like a furnace. The cook, a red-faced woman in a stained apron, stirs a pot with vigor, while two maids chop vegetables at a scarred wooden table. The air's steamy, thick with smoke from the coal fire, and you feel sweat bead on your forehead instantly. Respiratory problems plagued kitchen staff. Black lung from coal dust, asthma from constant fumes, yet they toiled from dawn to dusk. Historians note that domestic service employed over 1 million women in Victorian England, many starting as young as 12, with long hours and minimal pay leading to exhaustion and early deaths. You hover in the doorway, not wanting to disrupt, but the scullery maid glances up, her hands plunged in soapy water that's probably laced with caustic soda. Chemical burns were routine, skin cracking and peeling from daily immersion in harsh cleaners. You step inside, the heat wrapping around you like a too-tight embrace, and notice the back door leading to a small yard where laundry hangs limp in the smoggy air. Washing was another peril. Boiling coppers of water risked scalds, and mangles, those roller presses, could crush fingers in a blink. The maid at the sink winces as she scrubs a pot, her knuckles red and swollen, chilblains from cold water in winter, or worse, infections from cuts exposed to filth. Quirky tidbit. Some servants used urine as a stain remover. Its ammonia content was effective, but adding to the unsanitary haze that bred tuberculosis in cramped quarters. Historians still argue whether the high servant mortality was due more to overwork or poor living conditions. But as you watch the cook cough into her sleeve, a dry hack that speaks volumes, you're leaning toward both. The range belches smoke, and you cover your mouth, eyes watering from the sting. Beyond the kitchen is a narrow passage to the servants' hall, a communal space where they eat and rest briefly. You slip in, finding a long table with benches, a few personal touches like a Bible or knitted shawl. The walls are bare, damp seeping through the plaster, fostering mold that could trigger allergies or worse respiratory ills. Servants slept in attics or basements, rooms shared with multiple beds, privacy a luxury. Upstairs attics baked in summer, froze in winter. Down here, floods from poor drainage brought sewage and rats. You spot a young girl, maybe 14, darning socks by candlelight, eye strain leading to early vision loss, and flames are a constant fire risk. Malnutrition was rampant. They ate leftovers, often spoiled, causing digestive woes or scurvy from lack of fresh produce. Joke number 1. Victorian servants' diet, where table scraps meant gambling on whether tonight's meal was feast or food poisoning. You back out, heart heavy, and climb a side stair to the upper servants' quarters, tucked under the eaves. The steps are rickety, low ceilings forcing you to duck, and the air's stale, trapped heat making it stuffy. A row of doors leads to tiny rooms, iron beds, a washstand, perhaps a peg for clothes. No fireplaces here. They shivered through nights, rheumatism setting in young. Female servants faced additional risks. Pregnancy from unwanted advances meant dismissal without reference, leading to poverty or workhouses. The hierarchy was strict. Housemaids rose at 5 a.m. to light fires, their knees scarred from kneeling on grates, coal dust blackening lungs. You open a door quietly, finding an empty room with a thin mattress and a chamber pot. Damp patches on the ceiling hint at leaks, breeding fungi that caused servants' cough. Isolation was mental too. Days off were rare, social lives curtailed, and depression common but untreated. You retreat, the quarter's starkness a stark contrast to upstairs luxury, and ponder the invisible toll. Occupational hazards defined their lives. Repetitive strain from scrubbing, chemical exposure from polishes, and physical exhaustion from 16-hour days. Many died young, bodies worn out by 40. Joke number 2. Being a Victorian servant, the original extreme sport, with no safety net except the poorhouse. You emerge back into the main house, the baize door swinging shut behind you, sealing off that world. The family's oblivious comfort rests on this hidden suffering, a foundation of sweat and sacrifice. Dinner calls from downstairs, but now every polished surface, every warm room, feels tainted by the struggles below. You've peeled back another layer of the house's facade, revealing the human cost woven into its walls. Night approaches, the servants still toiling, their risks a silent symphony underfoot. You're grateful for the glimpse, but it weighs on you as you head to the dining room, the divide between worlds sharper than ever. You emerge from the servants' quarters, the baize door whispering shut behind you, like it's keeping their secrets locked away, and pause in the main hallway, the gas lamp's soft hiss, a familiar undertone now. Dinner's aromas waft from the dining room. Roast meat, perhaps, with gravy that might hide its adulterations. But your stomach's too knotted from the day's discoveries to hurry there. Instead, you glance up the grand staircase, its polished steps gleaming under the flickering light, and feel a pull toward the upper floors. The house's family spaces call, particularly the nursery you glimpsed earlier, its door slightly ajar, like an invitation to uncover more. You climb slowly, hand trailing the banister, the wood cool and smooth beneath your glove, each step a quiet creak that echoes the servants' hidden labors below. The air up here feels lighter, almost playful, scented faintly with talcum and lavender. But you're not fooled. Childhood in this era was no fairy tale, wrapped in perils as snug as a swaddling cloth. You push the nursery door open wider, stepping into a room that's a burst of whimsy amid the house's somber elegance. Pastel walls papered with alphabet patterns, a wooden crib with lace drapes, and toys scattered across a rug that's threadbare in spots from little feet. The window lets in the last of the twilight, casting long shadows over a rocking horse in the corner, its painted eyes staring blankly as if guarding secrets. You kneel to pick up a wooden block from the floor, its surfaces brightly colored in red and blue, vibrant, sure, but you know, lead-based paints were standard for toys, sweet-tasting and tempting for teething mouths, leading to neurological damage that stunted growth or worse. Historians document how lead poisoning affected Victorian children, with symptoms like abdominal pain and learning difficulties often misattributed to weak constitutions or poor breeding. You set the block down gently, wiping your hands on your skirts as if to shake off the invisible toxin, and scan the room for more. The crib stands sentinel by the wall, its bars carved with playful animals, but those too might be coated in the same hazardous enamel, inviting gnaws that chipped away at young brains. You run a finger along the rail, feeling the smooth finish, and imagine a child, your Victorian self's daughter, perhaps, chewing absent-mindedly while nannies looked on, unaware. The air's still, with a faint mustiness from the heavy curtains that block drafts but trap dust mites and mold spores, allergens that could trigger asthma in tiny lungs. A doll sits propped on a shelf, its porcelain face rosy-cheeked from pigments likely laced with mercury or arsenic for that lifelike glow. Victorian toy makers prioritized aesthetics over safety, using whatever chemicals achieved the prettiest results. And parents bought in, clueless to the slow poison playtime delivered. Quirky tidbit. Some dolls were stuffed with sawdust treated with formaldehyde to prevent rot, but it off-gassed fumes that irritated eyes and throats, turning bedtime into a subtle chemical bath. You move to the play table, where a set of tin soldiers marches in formation, their uniforms painted in brilliant hues that scream heavy metals, cadmium for red, chromium for green, all leaching into curious hands. Children licked or sucked these, ingesting doses that built up to seizures or developmental delays, yet toy safety laws were decades away. The rocking horse catches your eye again, its mane of real horsehair, potentially harboring lice or bacteria from poor curing, and the saddle leather tanned with arsenic compounds that flaked off with use. You give it a gentle push, the creak rhythmic and soothing, like a lullaby with a dark undercurrent. Historians still argue whether the high child mortality rates in Victorian times stemmed more from infectious diseases or environmental toxins like these, with lead and arsenic blurring the lines between play and peril. But as you watch the horse sway, you're convinced the nursery was a battlefield disguised as a haven. The window seat beckons, cushioned with pillows that might be filled with feathers, harboring dust and allergens, a common trigger for the era's rampant whooping cough outbreaks. You sit carefully, gazing out at the garden below, where the evening mist rolls in, carrying coal smoke that seeps through cracks to coat everything in soot. A child's lungs, breathing this night after night, would scar over time, resilience worn thin by the invisible assault. You spot a rattle on the sill, silver and engraved, but silver polish often contained cyanide traces, a deadly residue for gummy explorations. Joke number 1. Victorian nurseries, where your toys teach colors, shapes, and a crash course in heavy metal poisoning. You stand, crossing to a bookshelf lined with picture books, their pages illustrated with watercolors that might use lead white for brightness, flaking into dust that curious fingers carried to mouths. The room's charm fades under scrutiny, every object a silent saboteur. The wallpaper's patterns, cheerful but possibly arsenic-dyed. The carpet, woven with fibers treated against moths using toxic naphtha that off-gassed headaches. Even the nightlight, a simple candle holder, risked fires if knocked over during tantrums. You think of the child sleeping here, vulnerable in ways modern parents can't fathom, without car seats, vaccines, or child-proof caps. The nanny's chair by the door suggests constant vigilance, but servants were overworked, dozing off while dangers lurked. A mobile hangs over the crib, tin stars spinning lazily, their edges sharp enough for cuts that invited tetanus in an age before antibiotics. You twirl it, the tinkling sound eerie in the quiet, and ponder the isolation. Children raised by staff, emotional bonds strained, contributing to the era's stoic adults. You kneel again, gathering a few stuffed animals, a bear with button eyes that could choke, fabric dyed with aniline colors linked to skin rashes. These were luxuries for wealthy kids, yet laced with risks the poor avoided by having none. Joke number 2. If you survived a Victorian childhood, it wasn't luck. It was dodging lead bullets disguised as building blocks. The fading light makes the room feel smaller, shadows creeping like the dangers themselves, and you rise, brushing off your knees. This nursery's a microcosm of the house, beautiful, nurturing, but riddled with nightmares waiting to pounce. You've uncovered its truths, the silent killers in plain sight. And as night deepens, you head downstairs for dinner, the child's imagined laughter echoing in your mind like a warning. The house holds more, but this room's revelations weigh heavily, a reminder that innocence was the first casualty in this treacherous time. You leave the nursery's deceptive cheer behind, the door clicking shut on those lead-laced toys and their silent threats, and descend the staircase once more, your hand steady on the banister as the wood groans softly underfoot. The house's rhythm has shifted toward evening, with distant clatters and the faint sizzle of cooking drawing you downward like a moth to a flame, literally, as you near the kitchen. Dinner's preparation hums through the walls, but after witnessing the servants' hidden hardships, you're compelled to peek behind the curtain again, into the heart of the home where fire and frenzy rule. The baize door swings open at your touch, and you slip through, the corridor leading you back to that steamy domain. The air thickens immediately, heavy with heat and the sharp tang of onions frying, coal smoke curling up from the range like mischievous spirits. You're in the kitchen now, the house's fiery core, where every pot bubbles with potential peril and the flames dance a dangerous waltz. You hover near the entrance, not wanting to disrupt the orchestrated chaos. The cook barking orders at a kitchen maid who's stoking the massive cast-iron range, its doors glowing red-hot as fresh coal is shoveled in. The heat blasts your face like opening an oven mid-bake, sweat prickling your skin under the corset's unyielding grip. Burns were a constant companion here, scalds from boiling water, singed arms from reaching into the firebox, blisters from handling hot irons that pressed linens to perfection upstairs. Historians record that kitchen accidents accounted for a significant portion of domestic injuries in Victorian households, with open flames and heavy pots turning routine tasks into high-stakes gambles. You watch the maid yank a kettle off the hob, steam billowing like a warning cloud, her apron singed at the edges from too many close calls. The range dominates the room, a beast that devours coal and exhales fumes, contributing to the infamous kitchen cough that plagued staff with chronic bronchitis. The scullery sink overflows with suds, another maid plunging her arms into scalding water laced with lye, her skin raw and reddened like it's been sandpapered. Chemical burns from harsh soaps were everyday badges of service, eating away at flesh while cleaning the family's china. You spot a row of copper pots hanging overhead, gleaming but heavy. Drop one, and it's crushed toes, or worse. The floor's slick with spills, a slip hazard in this perpetual motion machine of meal prep. Rodents skitter in the shadows, a mouse darting behind a flour sack, drawn by warmth and crumbs. They carried fleas with typhus or hantavirus, nibbling into food stores and spreading filth that turns stomachs, or worse. The kitchen cat, perched on a shelf with eyes like glowing embers, is the only pest control. But even it can't catch every intruder. Quirky tidbit. Some Victorian cooks kept toads in kitchens as natural bug eaters, believing their slime repelled insects, though it often just added to the unsanitary stew. You edge closer to the range, feeling its radiant heat dry your eyes, the coals crackling like they're laughing at your unease. Fumes waft up, acrid and choking. Carbon monoxide from incomplete burns, sulfur from cheap coal, silently building in poorly ventilated spaces, causing headaches or fatal drowsiness. The cook wipes her brow with a rag, coughing into it her lungs likely scarred from years of inhaling this toxic brew. Pots simmer on the hob, their contents bubbling. Soups thickened with flour that might harbor weevils. Meats roasted over flames that spat grease fires if unattended. You imagine the panic of a blaze igniting curtains or aprons. No extinguishers here, just buckets of sand or frantic beating with wet cloths. Historians still argue whether kitchen fires were more deadly due to flammable crinolines worn by female staff or the sheer volume of open flames in daily use. But as you watch a spark leap from the grate, landing harmlessly on the stone floor, you're not picking sides. You're just glad it's not your hem catching alight. The table's laden with prep, vegetables chopped on a board, scarred from countless knives, peels curling like warnings. The knife block nearby holds blades sharp enough for surgery, but slibs meant deep cuts, infections raging in an age before antibiotics. You notice a jar of preserves open on the side, its lid sealed with wax that could trap botulism if not done right, the anaerobic killer lurking in home-canned goods. The maid stirs a sauce, her wooden spoon dipping rhythmically, but the repetitive motion hints at the joint pains and arthritis that crippled many by middle age. Joke number 1. Victorian kitchens, where stirring the pot could mean dinner or a trip to the burn ward. The back door's ajar, letting in a draft that stirs the coal dust, particles dancing in the air like malevolent fairies, settling into lungs and eyes. Ventilation was a joke down here. Windows small and often sealed against thieves, trapping heat and hazards in a sweaty embrace. You turn to the pantry. A small alcove shelves groaning under sacks of sugar, possibly cut with chalk, and jars of pickled veg sealed with lead solder that leached into the brine, slow poisoning picnickers. Rodents had free rein here at night, droppings mixing with grains, spreading salmonella or leptospirosis through contaminated meals served upstairs. The cat twitches its tail, eyeing a corner where something rustles, another uninvited guest. You back away, the heat making your head spin. Or maybe it's the fumes playing tricks. The cook hollers for more wood, the maid hauling a basket from the yard, her back straining under the weight. Hernias and sprains were as common as calluses. Joke number 2. If you thought modern microwaves were dangerous, try Victorian ranges. They came with built-in smoke alarms called coughing fits. The scullery calls next, a side room for the dirtiest work. Sinks piled with greasy pans, water pumped by hand from a tap that might draw from lead pipes, adding neurotoxins to every rinse. The maid's hands plunge in again, steam rising like a veil, her face flushed from the vapor that could scald if a pot overturned. Chilblains plagued fingers in winter, painful swellings from repeated cold-wet cycles, while summer brought heatstroke in this windowless annex. You spot a mangle in the corner, its rollers ready to wring linens, or fingers if careless. Accidents here were hushed, servants patching themselves up to avoid dismissal. The whole space pulses with risk. Fire, steam, slips, strains, all for the family's seamless comfort. Joke number 3. Surviving a Victorian kitchen shift? That's not cooking. That's extreme sports with a side of stew. You retreat up the narrow stairs, the baize door welcoming you back to the polished world above. But the kitchen's fiery symphony lingers in your ears, a crackle of peril beneath the house's calm facade. Dinner awaits, plated perfection born from that chaos. But now every bite will taste of the unseen struggles and smokes. Nights fully fallen outside, the house settling into its evening hush. But down there, the range still roars, hazards simmering like the pots themselves. You've glimpsed the blaze at the heart of it all, and as you head to the dining room, the warmth feels earned by others' scars. You ascend from the kitchen's infernal glow, the baize door sealing off the crackle of flames, and the maid's muffled chatter like a curtain dropping on a gritty play, and re-enter the main house's polished calm. The hallway's gas lamps burn steadily now, their light casting a deceptive warmth that almost makes you forget the perils simmering below. Dinner's scent lingers, roast beef perhaps, with Yorkshire pudding. But before you settle in, a soft knock echoes from the front door. The butler, or whoever passes for one in this mid-sized household, glides past to answer, and soon a maid appears at your elbow. "Mrs. Abernathy has called, ma'am," she murmurs, presenting a calling card on a silver tray, its edges embossed with elegant script. You nod, steeling yourself for Victorian social hour, where small talk hides its subtle poisons. The drawing room awaits, freshly lit and arranged for visitors, the arsenic wallpaper gleaming innocently under the gaslight, as if it hasn't been plotting all day. You smooth your skirts and enter, the door clicking shut behind you, with a finality that traps you in propriety's web. Mrs. Abernathy rises from the sofa, a middle-aged woman in a rustling taffeta dress, her hat adorned with feathers that catch the light like tiny daggers. "My dear, how delightful to see you," she coos, extending a gloved hand for a brief clasp. You return the greeting, settling into an armchair as the maid pours tea from a silver pot, strong, black, and possibly adulterated with iron filings for that premium look, a common trick to bulk up cheap leaves. The steam rises in lazy curls, carrying the faint bitterness that makes you sip cautiously. Tea time was the social glue of Victorian society, a ritual of gossip and alliances, but it came laced with risks. Milk soured quickly without refrigeration, sweetened with sugar that might hide chalk or lead to whiten it. You add a splash, stirring slowly, the spoon clinking like a metronome to the conversation's rhythm. Mrs. Abernathy launches into chatter about the latest bazaar, her voice a melodic drone that's almost soothing if you ignore the undercurrents. "And Mrs. Finch's stall was simply overrun. Those embroidered handkerchiefs flew off the table," she exclaims, fanning herself with a lace accessory that probably harbors dust mites from poor storage. You nod politely, the corset pinching as you lean forward to respond, your words measured to fit the era's code. No controversy, just pleasantries. But as she prattles on about neighborhood scandals, a subtle dig at a rival's new gown, you feel the room's air thicken, the gas lamps hissing faintly like they're eavesdropping. Social calls were mandatory for middle-class women, maintaining networks and status, but they exposed you to environmental toxins, the shared air heavy with coal dust from visitors' clothes, perfumes masking body odors but irritating throats with alcohol bases. Historians highlight how these visits reinforced gender roles, keeping women in domestic spheres while men networked in clubs. But the subtle health toll from stuffy rooms went unnoticed. You offer a biscuit from the plate, its crumbly texture hiding potential alum for that perfect rise. And Mrs. Abernathy accepts with a smile, her teeth flashing white, perhaps from lead-based tooth powders that promised sparkle but delivered poisoning. The conversation turns to health, ironically. Poor Mrs. Ellis has taken to her bed again with one of her headaches, she confides, sipping her tea. You murmur sympathy, but your mind races to the causes. Arsenic vapors from the wallpaper warming under the lamps, or carbon monoxide seeping from a faulty flue. The drawing room's beauty amplifies the dangers. Heavy drapes trap fumes. Upholstered furniture harbors dust laced with toxins from dyes. Quirky tidbit: some Victorian ladies carried vinaigrettes, tiny silver boxes of vinegar-soaked sponges to sniff during calls, warding off faints from bad air or corset constriction, like portable smelling salts with a tangy twist. You glance at the mantel clock, its tick a gentle reminder that these visits had strict limits, 15 minutes to half an hour, lest you overstay and seem desperate. The talk shifts to fashion. Mrs. Abernathy admiring your dress's trim, but you know the vibrant blues might come from Prussian dyes containing cyanide traces, leaching into skin with sweat. Social pressures pushed women into these toxic trends. Tiny waists and bold colors signaling wealth, even as they compressed organs or caused rashes. You respond with a compliment on her brooch, a cameo that could be carved from shell treated with acids for shine, another subtle hazard in the name of elegance. The room's warmth builds, the fire crackling in the grate, releasing more coal smoke that mingles with the tea's steam. Respiratory irritants building invisibly, like the conversation's veiled barbs. Historians still argue whether these social rituals empowered women through subtle influence or entrapped them in cycles of exhaustion and illness, with the physical toll of constant hosting often overlooked in favor of emotional analyses. You feel a slight headache blooming, or maybe it's the gaslight's flicker playing tricks, shadows dancing on the wallpaper like ghosts of past visitors. Mrs. Abernathy sets down her cup, signaling the call's end, and rises with a rustle. I mustn't keep you, dear. Do give my regards to Mr. Wallace. You stand too, the ritual exchange of pleasantries, a dance as choreographed as a waltz. But your minds on the poisons, exchanged unknowingly. Shared breaths in a sealed room, fabrics shedding dyed fibers, even the handshake transferring residues from lotions or powders. Joke number 1. Victorian social calls, where the real tea is spilled, but so are the invisible toxins, making every visit a brew of friendship and faint-inducing fumes. She departs with a final nod, the maid escorting her out, and you sink back into the chair, the room suddenly quieter. The lamps hum louder in the silence. The air feels heavier now, laden with the subtle killers of conversation. Not just words, but the environmental barbs that pricked at health with every laugh. You rise eventually, the headache easing or perhaps imagined, and wander to the window, parting the drapes to let in a breath of night air, cool but still smoggy from street chimneys. The social web spins on, calls like threads connecting homes, but each weaves in dangers. Polluted air carried on coats, adulterated treats shared over tea, the stress of performance exacerbating nervous conditions treated with more cabinet poisons. Joke number 2. If modern networking is exhausting, Victorian calls were marathons, in corsets, with a side of arsenic appetizers. You let the curtain fall, the room's glow enveloping you again, and head toward the dining room. Dinner awaits, a solitary affair tonight. but the echoes of Mrs. Abernathy's visit linger like perfume, pleasant on the surface, subtly stinging underneath. The house's social facade cracks a bit more, revealing how even companionship came poisoned in this beautiful, treacherous era. Night deepens, the lamps steady sentinels, as you brace for the meal's hidden bites. You finish dinner alone in the dining room, the last bites of pudding sitting heavy in your stomach like a Victorian anchor. The gas lamps overhead flickering their unreliable vigil as the butler clears the plates with silent efficiency. The house has quieted now, the servants' footsteps fading into the background hum of settling wood and distant clock ticks. But sleep feels miles away after Mrs. Abernathy's visit and its undercurrent of stuffy room suspicions. You rise, the chair scraping softly on the rug, and wander into the hallway, where the lamps burn low, casting elongated shadows that stretch like fingers across the wallpaper. The air's cooler here, carrying a faint chill from unsealed windows, and you wrap your shawl tighter, the wool scratching gently against your skin. Nighttime in this house isn't just darkness. It's a canvas for unseen killers to emerge, silent and insidious, turning familiar spaces into a labyrinth of lurking threats. You're tempted to retire, but a restlessness pulls you to explore, candle in hand, the flame's tiny dance your only ally against the encroaching black. You light the candle from a lamp's mantle, the match flaring with a sulphurous pop that smells like rotten eggs, and hold it aloft, its glow carving a small bubble of visibility in the void. The hallway transforms under this meager light, the grand staircase looming more menacing than in daylight, its steps disappearing into gloom like an invitation to misstep. You start down carefully, one hand on the banister, the other shielding the flame from drafts that whisper through cracks, carrying hints of coal dust and something sharper, gas perhaps, seeping from a loose joint upstairs. Night was prime time for leaks, when the house cooled and pipes contracted, releasing carbon monoxide that could lull you into a headache, confusion, or eternal sleep without a whiff of warning. Historians note that gas poisoning deaths spiked in winter, with families found lifeless in beds. The silent killer blamed on bad air until science caught up. You pause on a landing, the candle's wax dripping hot onto the holder, and strain your ears for any hiss. The flame steady, but your pulse not. The lower hall feels emptier at night, the entrance door bolted against intruders. But the real thieves are invisible. Methane from faulty plumbing backing up through drains, or radon seeping from the earth below basements, though Victorians chalked such ills to miasma rather than radiation. You veer toward the back, pushing through the baize door again, the servants' corridor darker now, lit only by your candle's wavering beam. The air down here is denser, laced with the day's lingering kitchen fumes, grease, smoke, and the faint rot of vegetable peels in a bin. A soft scuffle makes you freeze. A rat, perhaps, scurrying along the baseboard, its eyes reflecting your light like tiny coals. Rodents were nighttime prowlers, spreading leptospirosis through urine-soaked floors, or plague fleas in worse cases, turning rest into a lottery of infection. You press on, the flame guttering in a draught, and enter the kitchen, now banked for the night, but still radiating residual heat from the ranger's embers. The room's a shadow play of pots and utensils, the massive stove a hulking silhouette that could hide burns even in darkness, if a careless hand brushed hot metal while fetching water. You set the candle on the table, its light illuminating a half-washed plate in the scullery sink, suds gone flat, but the lie's bite still palpable in the air, irritating your throat with each breath. Chemical residues lingered overnight, corroding lungs while servants slept above or below, their quarters breeding tuberculosis in the damp. Quirky tidbit: some Victorian kitchens housed black beetles, actually cockroaches, as omens of good luck, though they spread dysentery through food crumbs, turning superstition into a health hex. You wander to the pantry, the door creaking open to reveal shelves of jars glinting faintly. Their contents, pickles, jams, sealed with paraffin that could trap botulism spores. The anaerobic assassin, waiting to strike in tainted batches, consumed at dawn. A faint odor catches you. Gas again. Or is it sewer backwash from the drains? Early plumbing let methane accumulate, especially at night when usage dropped, and explosions weren't rare. A spark from a relit fire meeting the buildup could level rooms. You back away, candle in hand, the flame's heat warming your fingers as wax pools. Historians still argue whether nighttime gas incidents were more from poor maintenance or the era's rapid adoption without safety valves. But as you sniff the air, detecting that telltale sweetness, you're not debating, you're retreating. The stairs beckon upward, narrower here in the service wing, their treads worn slick from countless feet. A slip in the dark, meaning a broken neck or worse. You climb gingerly, the candle casting wild shadows that make the walls seem to shift, like the house is breathing with you. Back in the main house, the hallway feels safer, but no less eerie. The grandfather clock's tick amplified in the silence, marking time like a heartbeat in the void. You head to the library, its door ajar, and slip inside, the candle illuminating shelves of books that now look like sentinels in the gloom. Dust motes dance in the light, potential carriers of anthrax from poorly cured leather bindings, or mold spores from damp pages, causing book lung in avid readers. You set the candle down, its flame steady on the desk, and flip open a volume, poetry, perhaps. But the fine print blurs in the low light, straining your eyes as gas lamps would upstairs, contributing to widespread myopia from prolonged dim reading. A creak from the floor above startles you, the house settling, or a servant on late duties. Isolation at night amplified fears, with burglars or fire's top worries. But the unseen, radon, carbon monoxide, were the true stalkers. You extinguish the candle with a pinch, plunging the room into blackness, and navigate by memory to the door, the darkness absolute. No nightlights or exit signs here. The hallway's void presses in, your hands outstretched to feel walls, the air cooler now with a metallic tang, lead from paint flaking in the chill, or water pipes sweating condensation laced with the metal. You reach the stairs again, ascending blind, each step a faith leap, the banister your guide. Joke number 1. Victorian nights, where lights out meant gambling on whether you'd wake to dawn or a different kind of eternal dark. At the top, you relight from a wall sconce, the gas flame leaping eagerly, and head to your bedroom. But a whim turns you to the nursery door. Inside, the child's even breathing is a soft rhythm, but nighttime dangers lurk. Crib death from overheating blankets, or whooping cough carried on drafts. You watch a moment, the moon filtering through curtains to silver the rocking horse, its painted eyes gleaming like they know the house's secrets. Retreating to your room, the bed's lumpy welcome feels almost comforting. But as you blow out the candle, darkness swallows everything. Unseen killers, gas, dust, vermin, poised in the black. Joke number 2. If day was a Victorian minefield, night was the ambush party, with silent threats crashing the sleepover. You lie there, ears attuned to every creak, the house's nocturnal symphony a lullaby of lurking peril. Historians debate if the era's high insomnia rates stemmed from these hazards or the psychological weight of an uncertain world. But as your eyes adjust to the void, you're wide awake, the night's silence louder than any noise. Sleep tugs eventually, but the threats hover, invisible guardians of this treacherous twilight. You settle into bed after the long night of wandering, the lumpy horsehair mattress cradling you unevenly as the quilt's weight presses down like a heavy sigh from the era itself. The candle's wick has burned low, its flame sputtering one last time before you pinch it out, plunging the room into that thick Victorian darkness where unseen killers prowl in silence. Gas seeping through cracks, dust settling with arsenic whispers, or the chill that could turn a sniffle into pneumonia without warning. You lie there, eyes adjusting to the void, the house creaking around you like it's sharing secrets with the night, and your mind drifts over the day's gauntlet, the wallpaper's toxic glow, the stairs' treacherous drop, the medicine cabinet's deadly elixirs. Sleep tugs at you gently, a slow unraveling of tension in your muscles. But just as your breaths deepen, a jolt pulls you back. The bang of a distant door, or perhaps the wind rattling a loose pane. Your heart races in the black, straining for sounds, the silence amplifying every rustle until you're wide awake again, pondering the night's hidden ambushes. You fumble for matches on the bedside table, striking one with a sharp sulfur flare that illuminates your face in harsh relief, the smell acrid and biting like a warning from the past. The candle relights, its soft glow pushing back the shadows. But even this simple act carries risk. Early matches contained white phosphorus, causing phossy jaw in factory workers, their bones rotting from the inside out in a glow-in-the-dark agony. You hold the light higher, scanning the room. The washstand's basin gleams. The mirror reflects a wavy version of your wary self, and the bed's canopy drapes like a shroud. The air feels heavier now, perhaps from the fire's dying embers releasing carbon monoxide, that odorless thief stealing breaths in sleep. Historians document how Victorian bedrooms were death traps at night, with faulty chimneys or sealed windows trapping fumes, leading to mysterious deaths chalked up to visitation from God rather than poor ventilation. You rise, slipping into a dressing gown that's warm but cumbersome, its wool fibers possibly dyed with aniline chemicals that irritate skin in the damp. Candle in hand, you venture out, the hallway a tunnel of flickering uncertainty, drafts teasing the flame as you navigate toward the water closet. The flush toilet, a novelty in the 1870s, gurgles softly, but you recall how early models allowed sewer gases to backflow, methane building until a spark ignited explosions that shattered porcelain and lives. You wash quickly, the water cold from the lead-lined tank upstairs, leaching subtle poisons into every splash. Chronic exposure causing fatigue, irritability, or the blue line on gums signaling saturation. Quirky tidbit: some Victorians believed night air was poisonous, sealing windows tight and unwittingly inviting indoor gases to fester, turning bedrooms into gas chambers of their own making. Back in the hall, you pause at the nursery door again, peeking in to find the child, Charlotte, sleeping peacefully under the watchful eye of the night nurse, her lamp a low glow that casts gentle shadows. But even here, dangers lurk, opiate-laced syrups for restless nights, or the cradle's rocking motion hiding instability that could tip in the dark. You continue downstairs, the grand staircase more imposing at midnight, each step a cautious descent into deeper gloom. The banister your anchor against falls that claimed so many in unlit hours. The entrance hall echoes emptily, the clock's chime marking the witching hour with a solemn toll, and you feel the house's pulse slow, its daytime bustle surrendered to nocturnal stealth. Historians still argue whether Victorian insomnia epidemics stemmed from these environmental hazards or the psychological strain of rigid social structures. But as you wander into the drawing room, the empty chairs seem to whisper of both, fumes from the dying fire mingling with the weight of unspoken fears. You relight a gas lamp briefly, its hiss a companionable threat, the light revealing knickknacks dusted with potential poisons, a vase of flowers sprayed with arsenic preservative, or photographs fixed with silver nitrate that burn skin on contact. The night wears on, your candle dwindling as you explore the library once more, shelves of books looming like silent judges, their pages possibly inked with toxic pigments that flaked into dust inhaled during late reads. A medical tome catches your eye, open to a page on night terrors, but you know the real terrors were tangible, bedbugs in mattresses spreading typhus, or the chill fostering tuberculosis in drafty rooms. Joke number 1. Victorian nights, where sweet dreams came with a side of silent suffocation. Because who needs alarm clocks when gas leaks do the job? You close the book, the thud echoing, and head back upstairs. The candles wax hot on your fingers now, a reminder of the era's everyday burns. Charlotte's room draws you again, her small form stirring in sleep, and you sit by her bed, holding her hand in the dim, feeling a surge of protectiveness against the invisible onslaught. Lead in her toys by day, fumes in her breath by night. Dawn hints at the horizon as you return to your room, the candle guttering out just as you slip under the quilts, exhaustion finally claiming you in fits and starts. But sleep shifts suddenly, the lumpy bed softening beneath you, the darkness lifting to a gentle grey. Your eyes flutter open, not to Victorian chill, but to the hum of your modern air conditioner, the soft glow of a digital clock reading 7:02 a.m. You're back, woke up in your bed, the memory foam cradling you like a hug. No horsehair pokes or woolen weights. The air's clean, filtered through vents with no coal dust or arsenic vapors, and you stretch, feeling the freedom of pajamas over corsets. Smoke detectors beep reassuringly if needed. Carbon monoxide alarms stand sentinel, and your bathroom's ensuite glows with electric light, hot water on demand from pipes free of lead. You sit up, rubbing your eyes. The dream, or was it a time slip? Fading, but leaving echoes of gratitude. Modern safety nets, born from Victorian lessons. Building codes, banning arsenic dyes after scandals. Food regulations stamping out adulterations. And medicine tested rigorously to avoid opiate pitfalls. You reflect on their resilience, adapting to unknowns we now guard against. Their daily grit forging the path to our comforts. Joke number 2. If Victorians were tough cookies, we're the crumb-free version. Thanks to all those oops moments in history. You pad to the kitchen, brewing coffee that's pure beans, no chicory cheats, and sip it by the window, watching cars hum by without manure trails. The past's perils make today's mundane magical. Child-proof locks on cabinets, lead-free paint on walls, vaccines warding off nursery nightmares. Historians praise Victorian innovation, their gaslight paving way for electricity, their plumbing evolving to safe sewers. But quirky tidbit, they used thunder mugs, chamber pots, under beds, emptied by servants into streets until reforms, breeding cholera waves that spurred modern sanitation. You chuckle at the contrast, your fridge humming with pasteurized milk. No borax needed. Joke number 3. Surviving a Victorian day in your dream? Now that's what I call a wake-up call. Literally. The sun rises higher, your home's safeguards invisible but ironclad, a testament to progress built on their unseen sufferings. You're grateful, resilient in your way, carrying a sliver of their spirit forward. As the echoes of that Victorian world fade softer in your mind, you feel your body sinking deeper into the familiar embrace of your modern bed, the sheets smooth and light against your skin, wrapping you in a gentle cocoon of warmth and security. Your breathing slows, matching the quiet rhythm of the room around you, where every hum from the heater and every soft tick of the clock reassures you that hidden dangers are a thing of the distant past, guarded against by the invisible shields of today's careful designs. The weight of the day lifts gradually, your muscles releasing their hold one by one, starting from your toes, curling contentedly, up through your legs, growing heavy and still, your back settling flat against the mattress as if melting into it, your arms resting loose at your sides, fingers unfurling like petals in the night. Thoughts drift lazily now, no longer tangled in arsenic threads or gaslit shadows, but floating toward peaceful nothingness. The dream's lessons tucked away like a well-worn book on a safe, dust-free shelf. Eyelids grow heavier with each slow blink, the world blurring at the edges, softening into a hazy glow that invites surrender, your mind quieting to a whisper, reassured that here, in this moment, you are protected, cherished by the advancements that turned peril into peace. Let the final images dissolve gently, the ornate but treacherous house giving way to your simple, secure haven, fading into the calm expanse of rest, where worries evaporate like morning mist under a kind sun. Sleep envelops you fully now, deep and undisturbed, carrying you through the night on waves of tranquility until dawn arrives soft and welcoming once more.